Hello? I hope the audio is better now. Okay, give me a second. Hello? I hope the audio is better now. Okay, I know what's wrong with the audio. I hope the audio is better now. Okay. It's not like a wire issue. Yeah, y'all gonna laugh again. Me making dumbass mistakes like always. Give me a second. Sometimes I don't think my audio cable, it was not plugged in all the way. That's why it was making the hiss sound. Some time ago, I forgot to hit live. I was talking for half an hour. I realized that I was in live. I was catering to the comments. Now it's the wire. Jeez Louise, when am I gonna learn? I've been doing this for the longest. When am I gonna learn? I'm very pissed at myself. I didn't connect the connector all the way. Wow. Learn from my mistakes. Always make a mistake. If it's not a mistake, it's not a live stream. Wow. So let me know if it's sounding better. As a matter of fact, let me check. So let me know if... Yeah, it's good. I can hear myself. Wow. Wow. Well, let me start from the beginning. And thank you for bearing with me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome. This is Tech for Your Needs. We're just going to talk about general tech, anything that come up, any questions. I'm going to answer to my best ability. And this is the guy that always had to have tech woes. If not, his live stream is not going to star. I'm very just pissed right now. A minor thing, I didn't push the plug all the way. But I digress. Let me continue. Let me start from the beginning. And thanks everybody bearing with me, all these minutes. Wow. Everything I was here on time. I wasn't late. Everything was smooth. And I need to be extra earlier and test things. But I was even 20 minutes earlier. That's the thing that pissed me off more. I don't know. Whatever. But let me go back. Bobby, salute for coming in and bearing with all this craziness. Uno, nice to see you, brother. Haven't talked to you for a while, but I hope everything's well. Ricardo Soto, I haven't seen you around Clubhouse or anywhere else, but thanks for supporting. Much love to those people bearing with me, hanging in there. Wow. Sometimes I just I don't know. For sure. Let me say in ghetto term, for sure. If it's not tech walls, it's not up to par. But I got it. iPhones, we'll talk about that. S23, I don't have it, but I do my best. You might want to change the browser. Yeah, even in the browser issue was I didn't plug the audio. Everything was smooth as hell. But anyway, thanks for coming in. So yeah, anyway, let's get on, because before I have a nervous breakdown. Hey, Michael Pepper, if you want to come in, the invite is open. Just have tech woes like always. I forgot to plug in my audio all the way, so I was filling in for 10 minutes or more. If it's not tech woe, it's not. But let me know if you want to come in. Michael Pepper, just put the word invite, and I'll invite you if you're free. Matter of fact, I'm rocking a Ghost Tech case. I bought a recommendation of TA Tech, a MagSafe battery. It's not the current branding, but for the price, if I don't like it, I return it. It's very affordable. So I'm doing testing on this, and tomorrow I'll be filming a bunch of case reviews and everything, and finishing everything. I gotta do what's on my iPhone 14 Pro Max. Very not happy. Yes, if you want to come in, TA, let me know. Let me grab my iPad because I hate looking at the computer. And sorry for the loud noise. I almost got the same case. I like that it got a matte Finish, yeah. But for the price, it's dope. I'm loving it. It's meeting my expectation. It's the best clear case because I got more clear cases. Think it's speaking. I know I got like 12 cases. Well, 8 to 12. I'm not sure, but I got a lot of cases. And got to do the Carl, I'm thinking case 2, the case born. So if y'all want to come, just put the word invite TA and Michael Pepper and invite you. I'm just picking selected people to invite. So y'all let me know if y'all want to come in. Put the word invite and I'll invite you with that. Sorry I'm looking down, but once I get more streamline this, I'll have a monitor that I don't have to look down. But it's not 1080p for 27-inch. But you know, I gotta get the rig and everything. Go ahead and send me the link. Okay, cool. So bear with me, folks. Let me send the link. Want to make sure that I do this correctly. Copy the link. I'm still here. I just don't want to lean in nostrils and everything. So that's why I put it like that. Just bear with me, folks. I'm looking for Michael Pepper to link him. The link. There goes the link. So I'm coming back. So yeah. So since we're talking about tech, I'll start out with my all-time favorite tech of all time. Give me a second. This right here. Well, this is a sub case that I won from Kia 2 Technical. Well, she was giving a couple of stuff for gratitude for being on 1K. iPad Pro, not regular iPad. iPad Pro is the best product tech of all time that I love. That's my favorite tech. Okay, I send the link and everything. TA, if you want to come, let me know. So yeah, so far this is the best tech. So also let me go down. Also, I got a screen protector, and it's from VRS. It come in 3 package, so I'm liking it. It doesn't, intrude with the thing. I like this case a lot. I think it's mighty sexy. I'm doing a review. I like to use them before I do the review. Stuff like that. So let me get back over here. I will take a rain check, bro. I got stuff to do. Okay, that's fine. There's no problem. Just making sure. Yeah, Bonnie. I want to, invite different people and give different people a chance to come in and rock with me. So that's why I'm selecting certain amount of people today. Ole Luis, shout out to okay, chat. Sharp FinTech, if you want to come in, put the word invite. It's not mandatory, but if you want to come in, there's invite. Marco Pepper is coming in a few minutes. So let me go to give me a second. I want to read a comment from Michael Pepper. Here it goes, the comment. Savage, should I appeal on Wayne's behalf and act for a judgment, not a withstand on the better? And that's another thing that happened on Savage's channel. So, we could speak on that later, but I'm going to continue. Okay, Sharp FinTech, you ready for this? 10 minutes with tech woes. The tech woe of the week was, you want to laugh, it was a hissing sound on my audio. My audio was not working for 10 minutes. I didn't get it why, because I told you I was here on time when I text you, right, my brother? Following me? Guess what happened, my brother? Put this iPad down before I dropped it. My audio source cable wasn't plugging all the way. If it's not a tech woe with me, it's not a live stream. And, I'm going to call the name. Tech Woes live stream, for real. I need to, make that official. patent that because that's what I'm all about all the time. So this week it was that 10-minute filling. I didn't get it. I was in on time, 20 minutes early. I told you I'm in the cockpit, and the cockpit wouldn't take off. So it is what it is. But I'm here. Bring this down. Yeah, so I was reading something quick. Louis, sorry to hear that. My apology for my tardiness, but that may be just as well. I missed that tech. Whoa. Yeah, laugh out loud. It is it is. If it doesn't go like that, it's not a live stream for the books. Tech for your knees, live stream tech woes. That's I should do. As a matter of fact, if I do a blooper of that and do a collage, video collage of all my tech woes, y'all be laughing. I have enough footage for a whole hour. I truly believe that I have enough footage for 1 hour. Seriously, I do. Well, anyway, Sharfin, the invitation's there. If you want to come to the word invite, and you'll be invited. So I'm waiting for Michael Pepper because I sent the invite. Yeah, Ricardo, that is my name, Tech World Guy. Can you believe, Ricardo? I was live streaming last 2 weeks ago, and I did 2 or 3 weeks, however it is the amount of time without hitting live. I was reading the comments, and nobody told me where's Lewis. Only one person. It was holla at your boy. And then give me a second, Michael Pepper. Finish this, and then this today. Oh my God! But anyways, let me bring my guest. Put the thumb up if you're ready. I want to make sure. Hey, brother.
Me.
So what you? I'm the guy with the tech. Whoa! First, I didn't hit the live stream 3 weeks ago. Now the cable, just plug in the cable all the way. So you can laugh at me.
It happens.
Yeah, but all the time with me, I mean, I've been doing this more than 2 years. Actually, I've been back down. But anyways, yeah, I just want to touch real quick on the iPhone, a little bit on my experience. Oh, you went green,
Be
but
yeah.
and you lagging, Michael Pepper. I don't know. You're having connectivity issues.
Just full signal.
There you go. You're back to normal. So
It's
yeah,
weird. It's
so
like it's
far
fluctuating. So it must be something with Melon app today.
it must be. With this, the better is worth the investment. Stay tuned for the video. That's all I'm gonna say. Because I already shot it. I know I was there also. You was there, Ricardo? Oh, oops. I didn't even know you was there, my brother. But yeah, so what you think about the S23 or anything you want to talk about? Go ahead, the floor is yours, Michael Pepper. Any upcoming take or anything? Go ahead.
Um, I think that Samsung has really stepped it up, and they have the smoothest device that I've used so far. And I have another device that I'm using that has the same processor. And One UI is really, I don't know what they've done this year, but they've really stepped things up. And also, I really like this mouse case. It's got MagSafe compatibility. It's got like nice leather to it, nice clicky buttons. I'm getting ready to do a video on it shortly. Um, Samsung's leather case is okay. It's just holds fingerprints pretty well, and it's a little slippery. Their silicone case is similar. Um, I really think that first-party brand cases aren't really there anymore. Apple's cases have really stepped away, and they need to improve some things. And it is what it is. But
So yeah, so
as
good
far
point.
as
I
like
want to.
technology goes, I
Yeah,
think
go ahead.
that it's really hard to buy any phone now and not have a pretty quality experience. Yeah, iOS has had its issues, and I mean, people have had issues. I had issues with um, Pixel 6. I've had issues on other devices. One of the things I think about with Samsung, people talking about like OnePlus and other company and like Google Pixel being cheaper. But you got to keep in mind, Google doesn't have to support developers in the same manner as Samsung has their separate developers for the Galaxy Store. They have developers for DeX. There's Samsung stores, not as many, but there's also Samsung store like Samsung inside of Best Buy and stuff like that. So they got to fund that. There's other things consideration of well, Samsung does make all their own parts. They make displays, they make batteries, they make storage and memory and all that. So their cost would be lower because they don't have the same overhead as manufacturing that, but then also trying to make a profit selling it to Google and other companies. So then those companies have to pay on top of what Samsung charges plus make profit. But Samsung has to invest money into developing that. So they need to improve it to be able to pitch to sell to other companies. And then the other companies don't have that. They just pay their particular share of cost per device. So if Google says, "Oh, we're selling, we're only going to sell, I don't know, let's say 20 million pixels," well, then they're only going to pay for maybe 25 million displays in case there's some failure rates and stuff. Whereas Samsung has to manufacture for everybody, and then if a particular company doesn't buy as many, then the cost to Samsung for manufacturing that is split across fewer devices. So there's some other considerations to be put into play there. Now, the advantage that Samsung has is, they have their mobile division, but then they have their display division, they have their TVs, they have all of their appliances, so they can kind of share costs. So if one division is struggling, they can allocate money from another department to that. But there's just things to consider that are in play. Also, another thing that I kind of wonder if it's why it is, but the S23, base model starts with 128 gigs of storage, and that's UFS 3.0, and then 256 gig and up is UFS 4.0. And
I think
what's
I know
weird to
why.
me
I
is
think it's the cost.
that's also on other devices. It's the same thing with the OnePlus 11. If you get the 8 gig 128 8 gig memory, 128 gig of storage, it's also the lower, slower speed versus the 256 gig model. And I think it must be because they're all using the same storage from the same company. It's probably provided by Samsung, and Samsung, I mean, they've said 128 gig modules. Same thing with the MacBooks. And if they're using 128 gig modules versus a single 256 gig module, it affects the speed. So, like the MacBook Airs that are using dual 128 gig in some of them, they were slower this year because last year they were using a single 256 gig. So there's been discussion on that. It's cost, but realistically, if you want to keep your cost down, you think manufacturing the same type of storage would do that because otherwise you're having to continue to produce the old technology, and you have to keep that equipment around and up and tuned and all that. Where if you just move on to the new stuff, yeah, it might be more expensive, but you're not having to maintain the old stuff. You're not having to make parts for it. You're not having to create the dies, and you're not having to uh, create that particular technology anymore. It's why um, Apple keeping around older iPhones, they only tend to keep around one model that they continue to make from the previous year. Now they might have some leftovers that are there because of things like units that didn't sell. But as far as brand new and as far as continuing to manufacture, they're going to continue to make one particular model. And I think the reason why Samsung doesn't keep older models around, apart from what's already, been manufactured, why they don't just say, oh, we're going to continue to make like the S22 Plus or something like that, is because then they have to put it at a certain price point that affects, because they make models at, 50, 100, 150, 200, and, like every $50 increment up to a certain point, and then every $100 increment, if there's no place for it, but also it's that cost.
Yeah, I just want to say quickly hi to Android Stars and AC Computer Solution. And also, I want to add something. Let's give credit where credit is due. Samsung is becoming up with the ecosystem. And also, let's go back to a little history. Remember TouchWiz and look what they add now. Yes, the S23. I know one of my friends' cousin have it and I play with it. And I agree with the smoothness and everything. I was amazed. And I went back to it and I checked the battery, and they did tests and everything, a lot of channels, and the battery is amazing. It's holding up. I can't speak with everybody, but with this phone, so far I didn't have no issues. Well, yeah, one little minor issue, and you could correct me. You know the live thingy, you're supposed to get the live update. I don't know how that work, but I was watching a oh, sorry, I don't know what's wrong with the light. But anyway, I think you gotta be melon. So I was doing the live thingy, and the live thing didn't come down here. I checked every settings, and I couldn't get it to work. I don't know if it's because I was just using a free service, or maybe the service was in link, or I don't know what happened. So I was just baffled. Or maybe I gotta pay for a service in order to get it. You could correct me. I don't know. That's the only issue that I've seen with this phone. Other than that, it has been holding up. All day battery. I had no problem. It's been working fine. So, what you think about that?
Uh, the
I'm live update for sports and stuff like that.
I think some of the apps require payment for it.
Okay, maybe that was
Um,
the issue.
I
I'm gonna
think
try
like
a free trial for 30 days, a couple of days, and then cancel it to see if that's the issue. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
oh, I was just gonna say, I think that it's some of the apps, that's how it is. They require payment to get some of those features, because that's how they get people in, is like, oh, if we
But wait a minute. I got
everything
it.
else we don't provide.
Yeah, I got it. I know the app that I use is supposed to be there is Uber, and Uber's not showing up. Uber's supposed to show because I see.
I don't know if there's a specific setting. I don't use Uber, so I don't really know if there's a specific setting that has to be enabled for it. Um, I know that some of the live stuff requires that you put that on your lock screen as well to get it um, enabled. I don't know why they do that, but that's it's what some of
Okay,
them
so
require now.
I'll dig into the settings and dig in more, but I cannot. I mean, I've been looking for at least. I got this phone in November, and at least 2 months, 1.5 or 2 months, I cannot get it to work. I've done everything on every channel, every settings, and I cannot get it to work. I know Uber's supposed to be there. Don't get it, don't understand, don't comprehend why. That's the only issue that I have. Other than that, it's working fine. No problemo with this phone, no problem.
I mean, it happens.
Okay.
I just got an alert that my headphones were. Just
Dying.
got the alert. My headphones were at 1%. I'm like, oh, that's not good. Nobody's gonna be
Mm.
able to hear me if that happens.
Also, keep talking for a minute. I'm gonna show you something. So if you could entertain people for at least 1 minute, I'm trying to get
I was
oops,
gonna
the
try
camera went
that,
out.
but there we
I'm trying
go.
to get
I was gonna try to use my phone as a camera, but it's not working very well right now. So we'll see.
okay, give me a second. I'll be back. I'm just gonna get off the camera for a second. I'm gonna get in a product that I bought.
So, what's good, everybody? Tech has been interesting. It's been interesting to see people discussing their channels shifting, to see all the discussions of camera stuff going on, and I don't really think that some of the discussions even need to happen. It's been going on for years, and they can't. I don't know. I don't get why there's this huge deal of fussing over cameras making stuff up or this and that. It's like they're not really making anything up. It's just a new way of AI, and advertising is more of an issue. Privacy discussion, you know.
I sent the
You
link,
know, I
Shark. Go ahead. I showed this last week, but this is the product that I bought. Number two, AirPods. I'm in a case. So, so far, they're very good. But I got one issue with this that I'm very frustrated. And the issue that I have is making the same noise of my AirPod Pros number one generation. Like a hissing sound.
it's weird.
So, I don't know. Other than that, it's working fine. So I'm gonna take it back and see if I could get a replacement because that hissing sound, it's just when I'm taking them off, but it's the same sound. And that, I'm not the only person that has that. Numerous of my friends have it with the AirPod Pros first generation. I don't know about the second because I'm the only one that bought the second so far. So it's a SAC thing. So, I was gonna sell mine first generations, but since I swapped this, and they were brand new. Because they got a known issue, so I gave it to my sister. I didn't care, whatever. So I just did a good deed. She was happy. Yeah, I sent the link to Sharkfin. But yeah, so what kind of issues you say you was having with your iPhone? Could you say something about issues, if you don't mind elaborating with that?
I just said I know that some people have been had issues with iOS 16 and battery life, and that it actually was better on some of the older iPhones
Yeah,
than
on
the
the
newer
13.
iPhones. And but I think that's always going to be the case. You also have to consider the newer iPhones have slightly faster processor. Yeah, it's supposed to be more efficient.
Always on
Um,
display, dynamic island.
always, I mean, even if you turn that off, it only adds a little bit to it.
Hmm.
It's not significant, but I think more so is you think about brighter display. So if you have your display at 50% on a 14 Pro Max versus 50% on a 13 Pro Max, if 14 Pro Max, can get up to 2000 nits, so at 50%,
Yeah,
that's
2000
I
nits.
mean, if you're outside at least, that's 1000. If the 13 Pro Max was, I think, 1750, so you do half of that. The difference is basically 125 nits difference, which doesn't seem like much, but if you consider 1000 versus 875, that's 12.5%.
Correct.
That's a pretty significant. So, and no matter what you do, even if you adjust it, you say, you're inside, it's at 25% versus 20. I mean, there's a because the range is up to a brighter on the newer compared to an older, that's gonna have an effect. Um, Also considering looking at um, more and more apps are updating to actually fully support the high refresh rate. Are you doing the same thing on it? When creators, I know a lot of people when they first get a device, they're hitting those cameras pretty hard. So are you comparing that to like maybe you slowed down your camera use on a 13 Pro Max and you get a 14 Pro Max, and then you're comparing it. So is it really equal to equal? The other thing to consider is differences in data. Are you connected to 5G more because the newer devices maybe have better antennas, so it's able to actually reach out and use that full strength more.
Mhm.
When you're on Wi-Fi, there's a similar thing. Yeah, it's newer, but like, um, are you connecting to as efficient of bands all the time? Or, there's all sorts of factors that I think
Yeah, it's a
when
lot
you
of
compare
variables.
old
I
to
agree.
new, that's different. It's like
Yeah,
all
I
in
agree.
learning curve. Your device is learning. Are you running the same apps? I mean, see people that were like showing a device that had all their apps installed on it, and then on their newer device, they haven't installed stuff which you think would be more efficient, but not necessarily because then you know you might have to consider if you are starting to install things, is there an app that a difference in that? And the other thing is uh, iCloud sync and iMessage. iMessage in the cloud, all these things that are syncing that happen when the device is plugged in, and then some of them pause when you take it off the charger. So if you have a lot of photos and maybe videos, if you have a lot of stuff backed up, plug it in at night, and depending on your internet speed and how much data that is, what if when you unplug it, your device is fully charged, but it's still not done that, and then it's
Mhm.
sitting there doing it slowly, but that's running in the background the whole time. And then when you plug it back in, it goes up to full and finishes up. There's all these things happening in the background that I would be curious to see if people are comparing.
Yeah, I agree. But I want to touch on a subject, if you don't mind, that I'm going to shift a little bit. That is the camera. And I'm talking about cell phones in general. I think the logical next step, because, the megapixel is getting high, but I think the next step, I say 5 to 8 years from now, it'll be the one in sensor. Because, I mean, there already has been done in a couple of phones, mainly Sony's and other brands. But the thing is, in that realm, I think that's the next logical, because now this phone are being powerful and people are pushing it as the main camera. The only thing that have you using a phone as a dedicated, content creation, the only thing that I disagree is the removable battery. We don't have that no more. So therefore, the battery degradation is gonna go faster because you're using this as your main source of, shooting, filming, editing, and everything. If you don't have the means and the cash until you could get all that with the cash flow. But honestly, I excuse the noise. I'm next to a police station 2 blocks away. That's the logic thing that I'm seeing. That I say 5 to 8 years is gonna be full fruition. One inch sensor on each phone. Now the battery technology has to be up into part, because no matter if you got the 1 inch sensor and the battery's not there, then it's gonna be poor. You know what I mean? Battery and all that. So it makes no sense to go to that route. So what is your opinion on that?
Well, the other thing, yeah, so when you put a larger sensor in there, it takes up more space. So you need to improve battery technology so that that space that's taken up, when you have to make your battery take up less space inside the enclosure, you need to make it so that your processor is more efficient, but also the processor needs to be more powerful to be able to handle the larger file size and the larger images from the larger sensor. But then you also have to factor in when you go with a larger sensor, your lens is going to have to be either much bigger and then spread that light out more, and then you deal with things with softer light because you have a larger open aperture, or you also have to move that lens further away, making the device thicker so that when that it's further away, it can spread that out over it, and then you end up with a much thicker device. I mean, we see these devices that have 1 inch sensors, and some of them are quite thick. Now, Sony's aren't that big, but you're also then you factor in, well, sensor size, but then optics are equally as important. So, um,
Agree.
If you're going to do that, then it's do we step backwards away from? I mean, we've seen Apple go adding, now a 3x optical zoom because they crop in on the main sensor for 2x, and we're seeing that those numbers spread out. We're seeing things where there's discussion that they're going to be using a newer sensor and optics. I think that was actually developed by LG, funny enough.
Yeah,
That's a
I think you're
4x to
right.
9x um, in one camera module. And so if you do that, then going to a 1-inch sensor, well, it would be great. Um, you're gonna do that probably on the main sensor, and um, then it's like, how do you pitch it? Is it a step backwards? Because if you pitch that on the main sensor, but you're trying to tell people, hey, we've improved the telephoto. We've made it so that it actually functions in low light and it doesn't just crop in on the main sensor, which most smartphones still do because
Mhm.
that's actually usually better in low light. It's also not on the ultra wide. You're just telling people the ultra wide telephoto, well, we improve these things, isn't really significant unless you're in about perfect lighting. So then
Correct. But the thing
you have
is
that
gonna.
right circumstances right now, but you add that 1-inch sensor into it, and then it's reiterating again that, oh, the main sensor's improved. But so it's one of those things like, do you make the sensor bigger, but then you make it a higher resolution, which then that kind of counters making the sensor bigger at the same time, because then your pixels are still, if you go from, let's say, a sensor that's a half an inch to a full inch, it essentially ends up being about 4 times the actual surface area of the sensor. But then if you, um, I guess if you still kept 48 megapixels, then each pixel could be 4 times bigger. But if you increase it in order to be able to crop in on it even more, like some companies are doing, are looking at doing these around 200 megapixel sensor and then being able to crop in like 16 times and still have a 12, 13 megapixel, about a 12 megapixel, because they do remove some of that data for movement and for tracking and for stabilization. And then video, the video. So there's pros and cons with it. And then a larger sensor, you have to deal with shallower depth of field. So then you have to have another sensor to handle some things for beyond that, because you're
I'll
going to
tell you one
lose
thing.
distance
I'll tell you
depending on
one
the optics.
thing. My concern is I know they could be done because it could be done. I mean, it's been proved by Sony. Okay, you're right on all that, but my concern. I know they're gonna get the part probably right. The concern is the battery. The battery standard is not. We don't have graphene, so if we go to that, it's gonna take a hit on battery. See, I know the technology is getting better on phones and doing binning and all that, but in the one instance, I think it's the next logical step on the movement because phones are just being refinement, and I agree with everything you said. But the thing is, concern is not they're not. It's about the sensor. I know they're gonna get that right. The problem is how you combat that with the rest of the phone because it's not like my Sony CB1. I got to remove a battery. It'll last 10 times longer, meaning on the life longevity, 5 to 4 years more because the battery is so small on the phone, and that's my concern with that. And I agree with everything you said, but the part that I'm hurting is the battery. Without battery, what's the point of having one in sensor? Go ahead.
So my thought on that is to, most smartphones have a dedicated image signal processor that handles that. If the device can handle processing that image fast enough, then you're not in the camera very long. So when you're snapping those photos, instead of having to wait for it to process in between, if it can process really quick, when you're taking video, yeah, you might be recording, but are you most smartphones, a lot of that, can do 2, 3, 4 hours of constant video recording. But the thing is that with the file size, you're going to run out. So then you got to think about storage more so. Now,
Mhm.
if you were recording ProRes on a 1-inch sensor, like ProRes 4K, and capturing all that data, um, the thing to think about is just because it's a larger sensor doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to affect the battery life any differently than now,
Okay.
because you got to think about realistically, it's resolution. It's the number of pixels, the resolution, it's file size. Yeah, larger sensor typically means larger file size, but by how much? I mean, if it's still capturing a 48 megapixel image, that is still going to be, let's say, a 40 megabyte file size. By going larger, you're allowing more light in, but you're not necessarily increasing as much as you think, because like if I look at file sizes on this iPhone 13, taking photos with a 12 megapixel image, and then I go look at a 48 megapixel image from the iPhone, now the difference will be, in order to do that, you're taking a ProRAW image in order to actually get the full 48 megapixel.
Correct.
Most of these are still binning down to a 12 megapixel image, and then you're getting that data, so there's compression in there. But realistically, it's not 4 times the file size. It's maybe 30 to 40% larger. So I think storage is really the important thing to talk about, but also battery. Then you're seeing you're seeing like the Qi 2 standard, which is basically MagSafe coming to all devices. I think that that's going to be part of the pitch is, if you're using ours and you're recording a lot of video, um, in order to along, extend your time, just slap this battery on while you're recording video. I think also the
Yeah.
next thing I think is going to be data transfer. I think
Yeah.
we're going to see where, because we already know there's some sort of communication when you put a like an Apple battery on the back of an iPhone, and it shows the ring, and then it shows you the charging amount on the iPhone, and when
Yeah.
you
The
put like an
percentage.
Apple case and it shows you the color and all that, because it's communicating via NFC, and there's other technology in there. I
Yep. Near
can't
field
remember where I
communication.
found it, but I've seen the FCC filings. So
Hmm.
there's other technology that Apple has in there that they aren't even really utilizing yet. I think eventually what we're going to see is, and I did a video on this and then kind of pitched this concept, that we're going to see something that's battery and storage. And it's going to use something similar to like the AirDrop protocol, but it'll be an automatic thing. So when you slap it on the back of the device and it connects to show the battery like that, the first time when you do it, you're going to authenticate and give permission for that to connect to your device, and have access. And so nobody else can just slap theirs on the back of your phone and take your data. You have to have authenticated it with password and stuff, and it's linked to a specific chip within that storage. And so if you're somebody that likes to take long videos and a bunch of photos, that's going to be your external storage.
But can I say something to that quickly? What about the manufacturer of companies that have gimbals or they have, tripods to record and film? Then it's actually going to be a hinder with that. So then they got to work around. I'm looking at all angles. I'm being devil's advocate on every side. Just not only on the specific technology. What else? Accessories and all that. The link with that. I like your idea, and that's going to happen probably because of the 1-inch sensor. But then again, if you do that with particular this type of phone, the iPhone, and it depends. So I'm just going up and down. But go ahead.
Um, phys- Physical wise, um, I think that more so it might be that for those people, you're gonna connect up a external physical like drive and transfer, because I expect we're not far off from the iPhone getting not just USB-C but like Thunderbolt speeds for that, especially the Pro models, because of the whole idea of, oh, we're pitching 4K 60 and ProRes video, and now there's Pro Raw photos, and they're larger file sizes, and also now that you can do higher resolution cinematic video mode, and all these things that are making files larger and larger, that Apple's going to have to put faster hardware data speeds on the iPhone. Where I think the MagSafe, like I was talking about, is for convenience, or like you have a 256 gig iPhone and you shoot 20 minutes of video, and that takes up, 120 gigs of storage,
Yeah, that's more than
4K
50%.
60 ProRes. So you're going to then slap this on the back row, and using fast Wi-Fi protocol, which Wi-Fi 6 can do, like my router technically can transfer 7.8 gigabit per second, which, you have to divide that out, so it's a little bit less than 1 gigabyte per second. But if you think about that, that means in a matter of a couple minutes, you should be able to back up that whole amount to a drive just by slapping it on the back, and then your internal storage is freed up. And
So I
it
got a
could be
question.
doing it as an after effect or as like a buffer. You slap it on the back as you record. It records a certain amount, and then it starts transferring that off and recording more and more. And
So when
being
you
able
finish,
to,
my question is quickly before I forget, is that going to take effect with the actual networking? Meaning, the 5G and all that. Is that going to be interfering? If that's, I don't know. If that's all have to do. I don't know. I'm asking because I'm new to all this, so you know more than me.
the LG Velvet had that dual screen, and then there's like the LG V60 that has the dual screen. With the Velvet, they actually use ultra wideband frequency to send the video. So the case, even though the phone like plugs into the case, it actually wasn't sending that via cables. It was actually sending that using like a short, close proximity ultra wideband to send that
Okay, that
information
makes sense.
over. It was doing the wired to pull from the phone's battery to give power to the display. But as far as like the actual video and the touch and the communication back and forth, that was being done wirelessly. Um, and I think that's what we're going to start seeing with data, and especially with like the newer stuff where they're using higher frequencies, like 6 gigahertz band on Wi-Fi 6E, and then you have like what is this, the 60 megahertz frequencies that are used. But the thing is, it's sub frequencies, so it's like fractions of that. So it's not running at the same frequency as something you're going to use so it wouldn't interfere with your cellular or your Wi-Fi connection.
Okay, cool.
It's a band that's regulated specifically for particular use, and it's actually why certain products, like for example, remember Google Pixel had solely for the Pixel 4 XL, where it used radar to scan your face.
Yeah, correct.
That was banned in India because of the um, frequency that it used is only allowed for licensed commercial use, and apparently it was considered unlicensed use for Google, and it has to do with they couldn't license it for that particular method. It can be licensed for other things, and it can be licensed for like government use and private use for like hospitals for communicating between stuff. But for what Google was using it for, India said nope. So that's why they kind of stepped away from it and have been working on something more similar to like Apple's Face ID The downside
Right?
is with Sully, what was cool is, you didn't have to be, you could approach it, and because it's using radar, all you had to do was be within the space of it. It would unlock. So your phone could be sitting on a table like this, and all you had to do is come near it, and it would scan your face. Now, the downside of that is you're sitting there and your phone's sitting next to you, and somebody calls your name, and you just turn, they can pick up your phone, and it could potentially be unlocked.
True.
Face ID, yeah, they have to show it, put it towards you, and if you looked at it, it can unlock. But like something that doesn't actually have to even be necessarily faced towards you, but just kind of in your proximity, that's an issue.
Yeah, and I was gonna say something quick. Any other thing that you want to talk? The floor is open. I mean, I already talked that. I talked what I wanted to talk. It was about the one in sensor, but since this open discussion of any tech, anything's coming or anything you think in the future, the mic is open. I'm gonna stay here, like at least up to 8:20 because I want to make up time for the time that I lost. But go ahead, the mic is yours.
Um,
Or talk about your experience
I
or anything that any tech you bought or anything you want to talk. Go ahead.
had this realization the other day, and I asked a question. Nobody really responded. I posed a question on Twitter, and it was, um, do you think that if Samsung were to decide that the Galaxy Store is a competitor to the Play Store, that it's too late for them, or they should have done that from the beginning? And the reason behind this is really, my thought is that Samsung should have, what they should have done with their devices is made the Galaxy Store the real competition. And I'm guessing Google said, well, we want the Play Store to be the default. You can have your separate specific Galaxy apps on the Galaxy Store and certain versions that are optimized. Like, for example, like there's some apps like TikTok and Facebook and Messenger, and some other apps that are, there's actually a Galaxy like optimized version that's different than what's on the Play Store. It's in the Galaxy Store.
Yeah, like
I
LumaFusion.
wonder if Google said to Samsung, we're going to charge you a certain amount per device if you want to use your own, and Samsung was like, oh, maybe they couldn't afford it or they didn't want that loss. I feel like if Samsung really wanted to be the competitor, they could have done the same thing where they use Android, but they put their own skin over it, but make the Galaxy Store a competitor. Make it so if you buy a Samsung Galaxy, all your apps, all the developers that develop and put the app on the Galaxy Store means that if I use Twitter on my Galaxy and I go and I take a photo within the Twitter app, that it has access to everything what the native camera does. Because that's what people complain about, with on the Android side was with certain apps is like, if you take a photo within the app, it's not as good as taking it with the camera and then bringing it in. Samsung had a huge opportunity, and I feel like that um, Google's advantage with the Pixel is that they can push that, and their marketing, they've improved on that. The problem is right now, Samsung is so far ahead in numbers that Google has to try to not lose people from the Pixel to Samsung devices, but also steal customers over in order for Samsung to ever need to make a change like that. And it's unfortunate in a way for the consumer because I wish that Samsung would say, you know what, we're going to truly optimize our software for it. If you load up an app in Dex, it's actually optimized for it. It's not just a weird, funky version of it that's spread out. Um, I feel like there's a missed opportunity, and it would be great to see more competition. And I think that would actually have pushed Google to fight for the Pixel hardware, because then they would basically be the the face of making the Play Store survive. Because if Samsung says, well, we have our own separate thing, then the only people buying from the Play Store are either apps that aren't available in the Galaxy Store and they don't need to necessarily be optimized for it, or people on a Pixel, or maybe like some Motorola devices. But like a majority of the market, Samsung has on the Android side, at least in the United States and in a lot of countries, would force Google to have to step up their update methods, step up pushing certain features through the Play Store, step up making sure that there's not all these redundant, repetitive apps, making sure that like the scamming apps don't get in there, making
Yep.
sure that everything's, and they can be lenient because, well, if you have a Samsung device, where are you most likely going to get your apps? The Play Store. If that doesn't exist anymore and Samsung actually has competition, I would argue that the Play Store is more if people want to say, you know, Apple's App Store is kind of as a monopoly because, well, you can only buy from that on an iPhone and you can't like download through the web. I would argue that even though you can sideload APKs and even though there are ways of getting things like installing from a website through Chrome if you give permission and stuff,
Correct.
that realistically the Play Store is a monopoly because there's a vast number of Android devices, but there isn't really, well, with the exception, like Vivo has their own app store, and like Huawei has their own because, well, Huawei can't use the Play Store anymore. But like,
Yeah, yeah.
and Xiaomi has their own. But realistically, I would argue that the way Google does some things and their methods, and in particular, even the U.S. government banning access to the Play Store by banning Huawei, is actually allowing for a monopoly to exist on the Android side and allowing
Yeah.
the lack of competition, and it made it more of a difficult fight. So I don't know. I think Samsung, but they have to be careful because if Samsung were to do that, somebody could step in and say, well, Samsung is being anti-competitive and they could end up going to trial. I think that that's probably their concern right now. But I would love to see like a Galaxy Store actually fully fledged with more benefits of things and apps where they're like, well, these are actually optimized fully for the hardware. So no matter what Galaxy phone, it's going
Yeah.
to recognize the hardware you have, and you're going to benefit from buying it from the Galaxy Store versus like LumaFusion on the Galaxy Store. It's the same as it is in the Play Store. Now, if you install it on the Galaxy Store, you only get it on your Samsung devices. If you install it on the Play Store, you get it on any Android
Yeah,
device.
Trayton made a video about that.
There's no optimization. It's not like, oh, you buy for the Galaxy and the Galaxy Store, and that means, oh, you can launch LumaFusion and it's more optimized for the hardware. It's not. It's just they put it in there. Because originally it was supposed to be kind of a exclusive to
Yeah.
their
Once you
Galaxy.
finish, I got one more subject I want to talk about. Go ahead.
So what do you think? Do you think that Samsung should have, or do you think it's too late for them to kind of do their own thing?
I'll say too late, and I'm going to talk about hate is where average consumer, because I was showing that you read my mind. I don't know. I guess grandma think alike. I was talking to my mom and other people. They know how to use enough cell phone. Enough. They're not really oblivious, but they saw that and they were confused why there was two app stores, and the Samsung App Store doesn't have brand recognition like the regular one. Of course, I mean, it's all over every phone, the Play Store. That's understood. So I did like a little testing, and I went around my family like, another app store, I'm a Samsung. They didn't get it. So so if it's too late, I don't know. I don't know, because Brandon is everything, and it's hard. And then again, there's the argument that you made in the early videos that when he bought it through Samsung LumiFusion, and he couldn't use it everywhere. If it's the same coding and it's the same app, why it's limited? You know what I mean?
I mean, I have all these apps that are now, there's 6 apps that I have to update
Yeah, go
in the
ahead.
Play Store. But when those are updated,
Mm-hmm.
now I need to also go into the Galaxy Store, and I need to hit
Mm-hmm.
down here and there's now SmartThings needs an update there. Now,
Oh,
sometimes I've actually had those with TikTok. That I did an update on the Play Store, and then I went into the Galaxy Store, and there was an update in there that was actually a slightly different version update to it within that um, to improve some things. I've also had it where when I updated it in the Play Store, it was no longer needed to be updated in the Galaxy Store because it must have been an update to like the same version and same fixes. But that's a confusing thing. So you could have somebody that um, is like, why are certain apps haven't been updated in a long time? But then it's like they never launch the Galaxy Store unless they get like an alert at the top that says there's an update and they click on it and they're like, oh, wait a minute, there's
exactly
another
my point.
store. Um, I think that's another reason, if Samsung had made the Galaxy Store a competition and the developers to promote it, then they could have that as the front page um, how you access your apps. They could also benefit it
Mhm.
being like, well, you load your credit card into Samsung Pay, and now instead of having to trust Google with your card information, you just trust us, and then any paid apps are just through the Galaxy Store. And the other thing that would be that would be also a lock-in to Samsung because, well, you've installed them on a Samsung devices, you're not going to leave Samsung to go to another Android device because then you have to purchase them maybe through the Play Store now,
Yeah,
or
you're
you buy some other brand tablet. Well, now you got to buy certain apps or subscriptions through their app store.
yeah,
But maybe they looked
but
at what Amazon did. If you think about it, the Kindle has their own app store.
true. Yeah, the subject that I wanted to talk quickly because I'm not gonna go past like 8:20 or 8:30, whatever. I don't care. No more than 8:30. If you got time, the subject that is very important on my mind. Yeah, give me a second. Hey, brother.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're fine. Give me a second. I want to introduce this new subject. I'm gonna stay here to 8:30. The new subject is what's up with RCS, whatever it's called, the text messaging. If you think that's gonna become fruition or it's still an ongoing battle. But that's the subject that I want to attack. The last subject before we close this. I'm gonna stay to 8:30. So that's my concern. So go ahead, Michael Pepper.
I think RCS eventually will, but I think it's not going to be called that. I think it's going to be like it's going to be called like UMS or something, like a Universal
Mm-hmm.
Messaging Standard instead of
Mm-hmm.
RCS. And the Apple is going to say, we've unified messaging and iMessage, and that's going to be their pitch because they don't want to acknowledge RCS and it's linked to Google necessarily. But if they can introduce something and then it connects through with those profiles in a similar standard, they can say that it works and have it ready to go. And I think that might be what happens. But I also think that, Apple can do that because they do have their own servers for iCloud and stuff. And then they'll just link through those. They're already doing that with SMS and MMS. The fact that you can, grab your iPad and send those messages, originally it had to be iMessages. That was
Mm-hmm.
your only, that was your only if you could send iMessages and SMS and MMS messages on your iPhone, but if you went on your Mac or your iPad, it had to be iMessage. And then they added the option to do all of them. Well, I think that the next step is they're just going to integrate um, RCS, and I don't even know if you'll notice
Yeah, but
if
how
it's any
long it gonna
different.
become?
Maybe it'll be purple or
Mm,
something instead of blue or green. It will be some other color. Um, and I think it's going to happen very soon because they're already in the
mhm,
European Union is already pushing to say like Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp and
mhm.
iMessage and all that have to be standardized now. So end-to-end encryption, work over LTE and Wi-Fi. Um, if you replace your native messaging client, and you've been able to do this with with like Facebook Messenger and some of them for a while, but it has to be able to send regular text messages as well as like the Facebook Messenger messages. And Facebook's been doing that for a while on the Android side. But I think that's going to be the next step is awesome. And I think more importantly, that Apple's going to have to do it is because I think the European Union is going to say to Apple, you have to allow default apps to be replaced. Browser, mail, messaging, you have to allow somebody to choose to use a third party. I think that's going to be the next step of.
Okay. I mean, what happened to Sharfin?
Yeah.
Oh, go. Oh, okay. Go ahead. I want to hear your opinion.
So what is the question? If will RCS become a thing for?
Yeah, because how long it's going to take to become a mainstream? And I mean, because it's taking so long. So Michael Pepper answered some of it. But it could be a year from now, 2 years. That's what basically my question. I know it's going to be the main one, and it's coming, and also what he said. So that was the question.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's one good thing with the European Union, right? They're kind of forcing Apple, dragging them kicking and screaming into that world, right? And I think to a decent degree, that's a good thing.
It is
I
a
know you
good
don't
thing,
100%
but
agree, and yeah, but it's just I think it would get rid of that whole blue bubble, green bubble thing to a reasonable degree, right? Where it won't be like a discriminatory thing or whatever you want to call it. And I think that part's a good thing, because you have your own story. I know you tell about that, Lewis, all the time, and how it was a bad experience for someone and anything that can be done to, if it literally can mitigate harm, then that's a good thing, right? Because that's what we don't want. So other than that, it is kind of
can I
a
say
bit of a
something
semantics.
quickly?
Yeah, sure.
My concern is that EU want to control the mobile around the world. I mean, and that's a concern in safety issues of security because they butt in the nerve in other countries. Like, I understand they're forcing Apple, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not pro Apple. I'm just the concern why that country is pushing the whole world. So why they won? That's my concern.
I think it's about leveling the playing field. I don't think it's about trying to control Apple, quote unquote. It's hard to really control a $2.5 trillion market cap company per se, but I think it's just about leveling the playing field, making it fair for everyone. That could even be a subjective. Everyone's definition of fair might be a little bit different, right?
Yeah,
But
because
it's just
my problem is
but
it's a
they're for the
security
consumer. You
issue.
understand, Lewis? They're
Yeah,
not doing it
the
arbitrarily. It's pro
USA.
consumer. Apple is always going to do what they want to do in terms of their profitability. Not always the best thing for the consumer. So the EU is stepping in and saying, hey, there should be a standard, and it should be USB-C because that's what the whole rest of the world is on, except for Lightning with mobile, right? There should be a standard for text messaging, so you don't have this weird blue bubble, green bubble, just two different worlds happening at the same time, right? And that some people are looked down on because of a different, silly, something as insane as a different text messaging bubble color, right? I think that's all they're really trying to do. I don't know if that's
Okay,
trying
so
to.
I'll say one more thing quickly. Let me explain my position. I'm fine with they doing that, but concern is they're butting their nose on the USA territory, and then that's my security. The security part. It's not what they're doing is wrong. I'm not against that part because they right to standardize it, even though all USB data transfer is not the same. So that's it's still not standardized. My concern is if they could do that and force Apple to do that, what else they could force to do in different part of the world, and then that threat. That's how it comes wars and everything. Not trying to take it political, but I'm just being realistic. I'm done
No.
speaking.
Well, you understand they only have control over what happens within the European Union, which is mainly Western Europe, right? But you're right. Since Apple or any other company, Samsung, Google, whoever does business there, they have to adhere to the standards. That's the idea, which are at least allegedly pro-consumer. I think that's what. So they're banking on Apple's not going to make its own products just for the U.S. versus Europe, right? Right, Michael. Now that doesn't mean Apple won't
They
do that.
started doing, with the SIM
Yeah,
card, thing.
right,
But I
right.
think eventually, I don't see them making like a Lightning version with like no SIM card and doesn't
Right.
support RCS and like all this stuff for the US, and then having one that's got like a SIM card tray, RCS support, USB-C, all these other features for the European Union. So that's where I see though where the European Union has control internationally, because they know that once they start forcing these certain things, that it's going to happen nationally because it costs too much for companies to make drastically different or people are just going to order like on Amazon, like go on Amazon.com/FR for France or whatever, and order an iPhone and have it shipped to the US because you can order stuff that way.
Right.
So
I agree. It doesn't make sense for Apple to make 20 different versions of a given device to cater to all different markets. So yeah, I think you're right, and I guess that sort of speaks to Lewis's point. But the idea is they're doing it for the right reasons. They're not whereas But I suppose that's there will be people that'll push back, and I'm sure Apple has tried to make its case that this is unfair and da 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 da. But I think they're just trying to level the playing field in those areas, and I'm not sure that's a bad thing. Maybe a need, perhaps to Lewis's point, maybe more whatever's needed to say, well, is it necessarily the right thing by everybody? But it's certainly they feel the right thing by European Union consumers, right? So.
my concern would be kind of the almost the monopolization of technology, though, because at what point do they stop saying like what you have to allow, and does an iPhone eventually have to allow like the Android App Store on there, and now every device is the same and has to run all the app stores, and does Apple have to make their app store so the apps can potentially run on Android even though they're different? And the thing is, like, okay, Windows and Mac OS have existed separately from each other. Now, yeah, you can go on the web and install stuff, but you still have to have a DMG file for the Mac, and you still have to have a different file for Windows and Linux and stuff. There's all different file stuff. So it's existed this way, and I think that's Apple's argument is like, we're just keeping things consistent of how technology has existed for many, many years. On that note, I need to go. I have to take
Yeah.
care of a child real quick. So
No, it's fine. I'm gonna finish like in 6 more minutes, so I'll continue with shark fin. So, yeah, thanks for coming in, Michael Pepper.
See anyone?
Yeah, no, because the concern is not. This is what I want to explain. Why they're being dictated to the whole world. I understand it's beneficial to have everything unified, but if you're going to unify, it's not going to be unified USB-C because the speed. If you have like, I'm gonna make up. This is just making up an example. If the speed is 5 and other countries are using number 2, see, the speed's not there, the phone's not going to work properly. So even USB itself is not standardized on actual speed through the port. So I learned that through Michael Pepper and other people, and I tested, and some of the cables don't charge certain phones due to the fact of the speed of the USB-C. So even still, if they force Apple to do it, everybody is not on the same page. Yeah, we all got vehicles, but they're not the same. Yeah, they get you from A to B. You get my analogy? But go ahead,
Well, that's
Sharpfin.
true, but I'll make an analogy with that. No, fair enough, and maybe that needs to be tweaked. I'm not saying it doesn't.
Yeah, that's what needs to be
It's not
tweaked.
going to be a perfect like anything when it first rolls out. But we know Apple and even other companies play games with stuff anyway, right? Like for example, Michael just mentioned earlier in the stream when I was trying to get on, I heard him say about how the S23 base model S23 has a slower charging port, kind of to your point, right? USB 3 instead of 4. That's stupid. I agree. But they're doing it to cut costs and to upsell you to get into the Plus or the Ultra, right? Apple plays the same stupid games, right? They play games with the Mac where this.
Yeah,
Right,
it's marketing strategy.
well, but it's not really. You could say the same thing. It's not really fair. So they'll lowball you to get into a MacBook Air or Pro, or the 13-inch Pro, right?
Oh, the Mac
But that
Mini.
has a much, or Mac Mini. I'm not sure it's true of the Mini. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know with the 13-inch Air, I think M1 and M2, if I'm not mistaken, both the 13-inch Air and Pro, you get a much slower flash. SSD,
Yeah, you're right.
slower SSD speeds. Right. That's some BS right there. So that's kind of your analogy with the EU is that they need to tweak that so there's one standard or whatever. And I agree. They
There you
should.
go, bingo. You understand?
Yeah, I understand. I mean, but
Yeah.
here's the thing: Lightning is a whole other frickin' port that doesn't work for anyone but iOS devices, as you know, and not even all OS devices. iOS devices only the non-Pro iPads at this point and the iPhone, right? So they're just trying to say, stop making people have to, especially now that they don't even include the damn power brick, right? With the iPhones, and it may be true of the base iPad as well, right? You have to go out and buy it, and it's very, as you know, very slow data transfer speeds, and no one else uses it. So I think that that's the way they're trying to level the playing field. It's not going to be
Yeah,
perfect, to your point, to start out, but
yeah.
I do think
And
it's kind of the right thing. And again, it only applies to Europe, but yes, they're kind of banking on Apple not making a separate Lightning iPhones and base iPads only for U.S. customers and not for instead of in a and USB-C for Europe. That wouldn't make
mm,
sense from a business
true.
perspective for Apple as
And
well as capitalized
yeah.
as they are.
And I'll touch on one more thing, the last subject, and then I'll close it. I don't mind staying a little extra because I was running late because of tech balls. The next
And my
subject,
apologies for coming in so late, but
oh
I
no,
finally
you're
got it to
fine.
work.
You're fine. There's no worries. Let's talk about eSIM. eSIM been more than 5 years. They've been out for I think 13, 12, 2000. I'm not mistaken. Don't call me folks, but it's been out for a while. So I think SIM cards gonna be gone in the future, and I think all companies gonna run on eSIM, because for me it's better cost effective. You don't have to do a physical SIM card. I don't know. I mean, they're small. I don't know how much they cost to make those, but the thing is, and the next thing is, it'll be easy to swap information, improve that you are who you are, and use another phone if you're a tech reviewer. For now, people see the growing pains because it's something that it been out, but it was not pushed to the massive. And now that Apple did it, you know how it works. So I think every company is gonna do it because Samsung and everybody else had it before. It's not that it's not new technology. It's just it wasn't popular technology. So now I think I'll say 4 to 5 years. I'll say that I think that'll be the next standard. And I think if you want to, okay, I want to use a Samsung Galaxy and switch from my iPhone 17. It's easy to do in that perspective because they're gonna find a way how to do it. You know what I mean? You don't have to call and change this and that. Probably they'll give you like a code, and that's your identity code, and you type that, and then in the new phone, that means you switch, you prove who you are. And I think companies gonna be fine with that to a certain extent. Would that hinder the people that do reviews? They're from USA and they do outside of USA reviews, maybe, because maybe that's for the USA. Maybe they're not gonna work the same. So maybe that's another logistic they gotta work. But what is your opinion on that? And that'll be the last subject.
Yeah, no, that's a great one too. And yeah, I'll sort of, well, I'm going to take the other side of it per se, just for
Hmm.
debate for debate's sake. But yeah, no, I don't think it's a good thing. I mean, I think you have some good points why they would do it, right? And it's certainly more cost effective to them in many ways, probably, right? I think a certain amount of it's about control, like you say. They don't want people using other devices, even if they're not tech reviewers. Um, and I do think that has its downsides. I think there are people that have more than one device who aren't even content creators or tech people, tech reviewers who would want to be able to just pull the darn stem out and put it in a different device, right? And now they're saying, well, you can't really do that, right? So they it's one more. My only thing is it's one more thing where they're taking something away that we've been used to for many years.
Yeah, but
And
I'll
are
tell
they
you
doing it for the
the
right
plus.
reasons? That's all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the
Because
right
otherwise, it's
reason
just
is,
yeah.
I'll tell you the right reasons, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I don't want to forget. It is a good thing to take it away because you got more space, so probably you could fit a little bit larger battery if the phone go to one in sensor camera, like I was talking earlier. So there's pluses to that. But there's pluses because there's a spacing, and maybe they'll give you a code 5555, and you could use any phone that you want to use and transfer. If you live in the USA, they might do that in the European or whatever country. Cause maybe that's gonna be the standard. That's how I look at it, like or barcode or anything to prove that that's who you are, that you're not stealing the other phone. My concern with that is, if I bought a phone that is imported, now that I got this code, but this code's only limited to the USA, I'm stuck. That's why I'm going like this. I'm stuck. That's the bad part about it. Because, for example, I'll use our friend Kimmy, Gadget Goddess. You see, that might be a hindering. I'm not saying that's gonna change tomorrow, but I think I'll say 5 to 7 years, maybe that'll be the next logical facing stuff. Because they need that is gonna change. And what I talked earlier about the camera, those are the two things, main thing that I think is gonna change within 5 to 7 years. But go ahead. I'll let you talk. I talk
Yeah,
too
just
much.
right now, I know you want to wrap it up. I was just going to say, yeah, I agree. Those are fair points. but I think that's a good point you had against it, right? Where you just said
No,
last
it's
about
fine.
the
We could stay 10 more minutes. I
yeah.
don't mind. I'm
It doesn't.
free.
I mean, yeah, but just to say that I agree with what you just said about that. And there are other downsides too. I think and look, let's face it, there are going to be people who just feel like it's one more thing, right? It's like first they took our headphone jacks, right? Then they took even before that, what was it? What do they call it? The change TV channel. Some people would just use it IR blaster, right?
Oh yeah,
Infrared
I am
blaster.
blaster. You're right.
First they took that, then they took away removable batteries, then they took the headphone jack, then they took the micro SD card slot. Now you're taking my SIM card on top of all that? Are you kidding? Are you freaking kidding me? You know what I mean? So I get the idea that, and Apple, as you know, and other companies talk about taking away more ports, right? A portless phone, which is even worse for us as content creators potentially, right? If you want to have, for example, an external, mini shotgun mic or something, right?
Okay,
So,
but I'll tell you one thing.
there are
I want
downsides.
to
When you keep taking things away, you actually make life harder on people sometimes and not easier. But yeah, go ahead. I'd love to hear it.
So now I'm going to take it to another step. What about the topic that we talked, you and I and others, 2 years ago probably, conductor charging? You go to a cafe and they'll charge through via waves. Maybe, 10 years from now. See, things are going away and we complain the now, but we also got to look what is going to benefit for the tomorrow. Is it going to hinder the tomorrow? Because conducted wave is much difficult because that's much difficult. That's a lot of new technology and a lot of dollars. That's not easy to implement. But I'm just using devil's advocate from all sides. I mean, all sides and all that. I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stay here to 6:40. 8:40. 6 more minutes because I want to talk about the subject. And if you don't mind, thanks for staying with me. But what you think
Absolutely.
about that? Because that's part of it. The conduction charging, eSIM.
Yeah, yeah.
Portless.
You're
So I don't
talking
know.
about truly wireless charging, which we talked about before, and I think it's an absolutely great thing. I'm all for it as long as it's safe and as long as it provides a strong enough charge, right? As opposed to a really slow charge with current wireless charging is A, it's not truly wireless, right? Something's plugged in, and B, it's slower, right? So if they can make it safe in terms of what is it, the microwaves or whatever, while you're holding the
Mhm.
phone, it's charging literally through the air while you're walking around with it, right? Or it's in a holster or with Kate, whatever, right? That would be great. But I think they need to. My only question with that is I don't think they should go that direction until that technology is ready. So I'm okay with them taking things away as long as it doesn't hurt me as a user, power user, content creator, whatever. I just don't like if they're going to take it away before those things are ready. Yeah, I don't mind. It's not, you know what I mean? It's like have that what they call quid pro quo just for that. Give me some value so I can get some value, right? So if you're going to say, okay, we're going to have this totally we're going to take your port away, but you're going to be able to charge wirelessly walking around your house or business or whatever, or even a Starbucks or
Oh,
something like that, right?
yeah.
That's fine, but make sure that technology's there before you decide to just arbitrarily take all my charging
Mhm.
port
And
away,
you know who
which
did that
also can be,
perfectly?
as you know, can also power accessories. Yeah.
You know who did that perfectly? YouTube Shorts. They had their pool monetization, and then they went to a new one. And as soon as they left one, they have one implementation. I get what you're saying. I'm using that analogy because it's the best one, and they did it on February 1st. So yeah, I like that. And you're right, have implementation based, but that technology is not easy. It's I mean, we doing it kind of because if you think about it, um, Amazon, you go to the store and you buy and you leave and already charge you. I'm using, it's not the same technology, but I'm using analogy that is parallel. So that's what I'm trying to get. And I'm glad that technology is going like that. But how much? It's just weird because we walking in a blink of an eye, you could buy anything. I don't know. Technology is getting too advanced and freaky and AI. You get my point and everything. So I'm like, wow. Now you could do videos and talk. Do me a video and I'll do a video in a second. Where's the human element? We still need human to create that technology, but still,
Right.
I don't know. This world is going too fast for me.
Fair point, and I kind of agree with you. You know me, I'm always a skeptic. I'm that guy, but I think it's a good thing, right? I think you are too to a degree, and that's
Mm-hmm.
totally good. I think. I mean, whether you know how I feel about crypto, that kind of a little bit off topic, but still, it's related to digital, right, and
Mm-hmm.
technology, right? But we talk
Mm-hmm.
about things like you mentioned AI. We talk in Chat GPT or Mid Journey. You know, anything, any of these types of. It's all good, but there has to be understanding. There have to be safeguards, and you have to you know what you're doing when you do it and understand what the risks
Mm-hmm.
are. You know, with ChatGPT, understand that you either
Mm-hmm.
need to filter for copyright or use a I think there's a filter you can use, or you know, or you're gonna have to fact check it yourself, right? Otherwise, it could be taking copyrighted material to write that book that you've always wanted, or ebook you've always wanted to write. It could be grabbing from something that's copyrighted and can get you in trouble for
Mm-hmm.
perjury and a lawsuit if you're not careful, right? So there's just another example where sometimes it does get ahead of itself. Doesn't mean it's
Mm-hmm.
not great and not gonna. And to your point, one of your favorite phrases, to give us great tools for, as you would say, a better tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
But understand what the risks are, safeguard yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
make sure you know what you're doing when if you're going to use these things before they're, you know, you might say fully cooked or baked, you know.
Yeah. Any last words you want to see? We got 2 more minutes. Anything you want to add? So I'll give you the floor.
Oh, I'm good. Thanks, bro. Thanks for having me. This is
Yeah.
fun, and
Yeah.
sorry for the way. Yeah, and you know, I think that I
No,
think I figured
you're
out.
fine.
I think it's the same problem that I had a couple weeks ago. Remember when I was trying to get on when I was on the road? The little
Mm-hmm.
join button just isn't there. Actually, I'm in Dex right now, and it wasn't there. So go figure. That's a Samsung
Mm-hmm.
thing that anyone could feel free to criticize about. I'm not happy about it, but now I
Yeah.
know what was wrong. It had nothing because I kept checking permissions. Everything was fine. Just that little join button was missing. So
Yeah. I'll say the
I
last.
kept getting notifications saying, "Oh, an app is using pointing a melon,
Mm-hmm.
your camera and mic." Yeah, duh, I know. I'm trying to get on a stream. Hello. And so I think I finally figured it out. So anyway, sorry for the delay, but this has been
No,
great.
no,
And
no problem.
yeah, maybe next week or whenever you want. I had a talking point for the future. I won't bring it up now, but it's kind of to some degree tied into what we were just talking about. So
Okay.
so
So I'll say the
we'll
last.
keep
I'll say the
something
last thing.
in the in sorry oh okay, we'll keep something in the proverbial what do they call it in the holster for dry powder for future reference. Yeah.
Cool. I'll say the last thing. With all this new technology, folks, make sure that you understand the basic and everything what you're getting into because nowadays privacy is gone and you don't want to just wake up and be like, okay, because my name is very common. My real name, everybody know, is common. They might mistake me for another person and squad, or you never know. Just be careful, because that's all I'm saying. Just learn what you're getting into. That's my last advice. And with that said, thanks for coming, everybody. I appreciate everybody. I'll say like this: peace and love. I hope I'm doing it correct. I'm not good at doing it hard, but there you go. And thanks, Sharkfin, for coming in. With that said, I'll salute everybody, and we out of here.
Peace out all.